Amsterdam is known worldwide for many reasons. Its futuristic bike infrastructure, tolerant drugs policy, female emancipation, underground art scene, and its tolerance of weirdos. But what if I told you all of this was set in motion in the 1960s by a small subculture that came together after the beatniks and preceded the hippies? A ragtag crew of artists, anarchists, students, prophets, wizards and weirdos who came together for just 2 short years between 1965 and 1967 and changed society forever in a wild orgiastic explosion of artistic madness, political stunts and revolutionary protest that attacked society and the law and dragged Amsterdam screaming into the future in a seismic cacophony of lunacy, turning the grey order of Dutch society on its head and transforming the city into ground zero for counter-cultural movements of Europe, and gave Amsterdam a reputation that remains to this day. This series is about the Provos, a group of youngsters that came together in hope of creating a better tomorrow by attacking the state and the elites through non-violent and non-rational means. So, let's learn about the group that transformed Amsterdam from a dull provincial town into the mecca of the 1960s counterculture, known as the Magic Centre. This is part 1 to the Shite Guide to Provo.
History, what's the crack? Tell me, did you miss me? We're going back to Amsterdam in the mid-60s to learn about a crew engaged in anarchist shenanigans who tried to change the planet with their madcap happenings. An attack on society, the monarchy, the media, a mockery of city hall authorities. Poets and painters, anarchists, inventors transformed Amsterdam into the Magic Centre. The post-war counterculture capital, a national emergency for casual radicals. Cast off your puritanical manacles and join the revolution of the magic and irrational. Ooh, there goes the neighborhood, here come the Provos. Working for the man is a no-no, staying on the low-low, playing with the po-po. When you're with the crew, you're never gonna roll solo. Ooh, there goes the neighborhood, here come the Provos, trying to give the world back its mojo. The people with no hope need to go loco. Here come the Provos to fuck up the whole show.
And we're going to start on the very spot where it all began, next to a statue of a little boy on a square called the Spouw, a word which I will repeatedly mispronounce throughout the entire story. The Spouw. Yep. So from here, we're going to take a mad ramble through the streets of Amsterdam to try and recount the history of one of the wildest stories you've never heard. We're going to learn about some larger-than-life characters and their revolutionary utopian ideals and the sticky situations they got into as they clashed with the church, the monarchy, the government, the media, and especially the police. Oh, fuck. But first, I have some good news and some bad news regarding the channel. The good news is, I finally decided to go to the City Arts Council to ask them for some funding to help with the project so I could increase the production values and get some professional equipment and some kick-ass animations. That's the good news. The bad news is, the Arts Council said no. So...
Is this the CGI? Yeah. It's shit. Yeah.
So, let's get straight into it and check in on the moment that Provo burst into the public consciousness. March the 10th, 1966, the day of the royal wedding. A day when a state tries to impress its citizens with its pomp and its power. But as we shall see, what should have been a day for the monarchy instead became a day of anarchy.
Provo's, short for provocateur, exploded into the news last March with a smoke bomb demonstration at the widely unpopular royal wedding of Holland's Princess Beatrix to the ex-German army officer Claus von Amsterdam. They'd been prodding at Holland's complacency for a year before that and claimed their protest at the wedding wasn't simply anti-German. It gave them a ready-made audience for a happening, and through that, publicity for their ideals.
The royal wedding was underway and under threat. The police were frantic. In the previous days, the Provos had launched a mission called the White Rumour Mill. The cops had been tipped off that the police horses and the horses of the royal cortege may have had their water supply spiked with LSD. There were reports that the Provos had filled the organs of the Westerkirk with laughing gas to be released during the wedding ceremony, and measures were even taken to stop the Provos frightening the royal horses with stolen shit from the lions in the zoo. Yeah, mad beans. But yeah, I'm actually at the wrong side of the city to continue the story. Let's try some of that futuristic editing I've been putting all that money into. That was shite, wasn't it?
Wow!
Behind me, at the Royal Palace, Princess Beatrix and her fella are leaving in their carriage to get hitched, and the streets are thronged with thousands of well-wishers packed all along the way from the wedding route, going from Dam Square all the way back there to the Westerkirk. Meanwhile, Roel van Down and Rob Stulk have gone underground, expecting a police raid at any moment. Across the city, Hans Townman and Peter Bronkhorst are putting the last finishing touches on their wedding gift. Cor Yaring is in amongst the crowd, locked and loaded and ready to snap. Case Hookert is chilling out with a chicken. Don't worry, we'll get to it. Robert Jasper, the man who set all of this in motion, was out of town, cooking up more insane plans, and the mayor and the police commissioner are on high alert. The city of Amsterdam was filling up with mass amounts of well-wishers, cops, and of course, the Provos. So, the stage is set, the players are in position, and Provo is now on the cusp of exploding onto the international consciousness. And in one afternoon, their message and manifesto will burst out of Amsterdam and reach a worldwide audience, inspiring other counterculture movements gathering in the clandestine backrooms and the smoky dens of the Western world.
And it is boisterous, and they do annoy people a great deal. They hold up traffic. They cause a great deal of mess at times. So Dutch people on the whole are not always very happy about them, but they're a fact of life at the moment.
Provo did this by taking over the streets, announcing their aims with their own underground publications, and turning the city into their own stage by performing bizarre guerrilla street theatre using the power of an artistic movement called Dada. Dada, while being the defining art movement of our times, almost defies definition. It was born in Paris in 1916 during the first mechanized war, when the royal families and the super rich of Europe collectively decided to sacrifice tens of millions of men in the trenches as a blood offering to the gods of capitalism. Such was the scale of unimaginable horror that an entire continent was traumatized, and in the mass grave the seeds of Dada were sown. It was an insane art for an insane society that would kidnap millions of its own teenagers and send them abroad to drown in the mud and the blood and the shit of another country's teenagers. Life was surreal, life was pointless, and so was Dada. So Provo had begun their anti-monarchist campaign almost a year earlier with the royal wedding announcement when it was made, And they were basically handing out inflammatory pamphlets, and slogans were painted on walls, along with posters kind of denouncing the entire affair. And the event was basically hijacked by Provo to illustrate the hypocrisies of society and to provoke the state. So let's meet the happy couple.
Princess Beatrix was a princess and one of the richest women in the world because of shares the royal family owned in Royal Dutch Shell, a company known today for helping to torture and murder 800 environmental activists in Nigeria. But anyway, as a royal, her life of luxury is paid for by her subjects, and she's marrying Claus, a former German soldier the Provos have made central to their movement.
So we are expecting Claus, Sinterklaas.
Claus is the not yet coming. The Claus is the one who has to come to clear everything up.
That fella there is the anti-smoking magician who had prophesied to his followers that a man named Claus would appear in Amsterdam and spark the revolution. It's all very confusing, and I promise we're going to get into it eventually. But anyway, look, that's them there, Beatrix and Claus. This provocazzi right here is one of the hundreds printed up that was dropped from a bridge on the boat of the lovely couple in the lead up to the wedding, and it marked the first political stunt of the Provos. The real action was to come.
Early on the morning of the royal wedding, tensions were rising in the city. Hundreds of Provos had gathered here at the dock worker statue, and several had already been arrested. But they gathered here because the dock worker statue was the scene of an anti-Nazi demonstration during February 1943, during the Nazi occupation of the city. And this whole square here was also the scene of an infamous Jewish roundup by those filthy occupiers. So the Provos were skilled in appropriating symbols and kind of twisting them to their own use. So at this point, the entire city was locked down for traffic, and it was all hands on deck. And at 10:30, the golden carriage was loaded up with the royal couple from the palace, and it begins its journey. First meeting with Mayor Van Hal, another enemy of the Provos. And it came here to the old Stadhouse. But living next door, there was another Provo. And when the royal carriage pulled up, he chucked a rat at the royal family. The cops did not like that. So they actually started a bit of an argument. And next thing, when this Provo tried to blast Hitler speeches from up on a giant sound system he set up on the roof, the cops raided the spot, and there was another arrest on this beautiful day.
At 11:30 that morning, when the cortege leaves the mayor's residence, the first skirmishes begin as the cops baton charge the cheeky Provos hiding in amongst the crowds. The sirens heard from across the city is the signal that the crowd gathering at the dock worker statue need, and they began to move in their thousands towards the scene.
But the cops didn't want to let them through to the royal route. So to bypass the checkpoint, a boatload of Provos cruised down the Prinsengracht for an amphibious landing, and they had some gifts for the royal couple that they'd been preparing all night.
Late in the evening of March 9th, the night before the royal wedding, Provo Bernard de Vries received an order of potassium chlorate, sulfuric acid,
nitrate and powdered sugar. All the ingredients you need for a special wedding cake. The concoction was cooked up by Martin Visser, Peter Bronkhorst and Hans Townman, who were going to be your chefs for this evening. But in amongst the madness is a lad called Kees Hoekert, who was soon to become the father of the Dutch weed industry. And he decided to stage what was called a white chicken happening by chucking an actual chicken at the royal coach, like the absolute badass he was. One of the royal family's loyal subjects, possibly a vegan, took offense to this chicken happening and actually grabbed Kees and threw him in the canal. Kees then had to be rescued by a member of the cops, and that was what they called a happening.
Spicy, 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 spicy.
As the carriage moves along the Raadhuisstraat, just minutes from the church, the crucial moment has arrived. Hans Townman and Peter Bronkhorst and a couple of other assorted spacers are mingling in amongst the crowd in the most heavily policed area. Hans Townman takes a couple of puffs of his cigarette nervously. Then he jams his cigarette into the smoke bomb and drops it on the ground in the middle of the jam-packed crowd. The provocation has begun. Peter also leaves a couple of wedding gifts for the happy couple, and as hidden Provos start setting off their smoke bombs, total pandemonium breaks out, and the police do what police do. They beat the shite out of everybody in sight. The Raadhuisstraat was then transformed into a madhouse. The Provos dip out, provocation complete.
Everybody out in the streets, everybody getting down to the sound of the freaky people. Everybody feeling sweet in the town for the meet and greet. It's happening! Everybody out in the streets, everybody getting down in the town where a crowd is illegal. Everybody feeling sweet in the town for the meet and greet. It's happening! Okay, and away we go. About to hit your grey matter with a fatal blow. Am I high? Yes. Do I have high hopes? No, I don't mind where the white smoke blows. It's no time to procrastinate. Get off that ass and attack the stage. Cause time goes by and everybody dies. We've nothing to lose, so let's try. Let me send a letter home, tell them I am not an island, I'm an archipelago. If you're coming to the protest, then you better go. If you want something better, better let a fella know. Everybody in together, let me send a letter home, tell them I am not an island, I'm an archipelago. If you're coming to the protest, then you better go. If you want something better, better let a fella know.
Shouts of "Long live the Republic" ring out as the carriage makes its way through the smoke to the church, and as the TV crews of the international media take in what was supposed to be like a regular royal wedding has now been transformed into an insane scene with confused cops battering the regular folk on the streets, unaware that they were now echoing the very violence of the Nazis on the Amsterdammers, unaware that they had now become central characters on the world stage, unaware that they were now partaking in a Provo happening.
I think this shite is getting spicy. Think this night is getting lively. Think the mayor will decry me. Think reporters wanna find me. Think those popo wanna fight me. Think those canine wanna bite me. Think those police wanna bash me, but they'll have to fucking catch me. Everybody out in the streets, everybody getting down to the sound of the freaky people. Everybody feeling sweet in the town for the meet and greet. It's happening! Everybody out in the streets, everybody getting down in the town where a crowd is illegal. Everybody feeling sweet in the town for the meet and greet. It's happening!
It was a success. The day of the monarchy had now become a day of anarchy, live on TV. The entire country was shaken, the government and the powers that be were provoked, and the citizens were now nursing broken noses at the hands of the police. The news headlines screamed about the white danger. The Provos had arrived in every living room in the Netherlands, and their quest for publicity was gladly granted by the bloodied batons of the police. Provo founder Roel van Down said of the day, "New faces, both insane and intelligent, now join the cause." And in the coming series, we're going to learn all about these new faces and their wacky futuristic schemes to transform Amsterdam, the Netherlands and the world as we continue the Shite Guide to Provo.